if you want to make a shit ton of money within the online business space or increase your commissions within sales, you're not going to want to miss this because this is basically breaking down a full step-by-step guide. What took me from making 5 to 10K a month within high ticket sales to scaling past 40K a month in commissions within 6 months. But this is going over basically my exact objection handling framework for any single objection. It works no matter whether you get fear, skepticism, commitment, like you name it. You can use this exact framework, exact process to handle any sort of objection, right? So the important basis behind this is like, why does somebody throw an objection? It's a delay as far as actual commitment. They're on one side of the bridge, right? They want to get to the other side of the bridge as far as like the time freedom, their goals, achievements, ambitions. All you have to find is the middle between as far as, the limiting belief, the mindset that's actually holding them back. Now, that same reason they haven't done anything or in the position they want to get to is the exact same reason they're throwing an objection. They're correlated. Same exact process. So the fundamentals and basis behind this is I ask these same 3, 4, 5 questions no matter what objection it holds. Now, prior to this, we can get into like analogies, reframes, all those things, but this is the basis behind what I ask. Now, when I say tie down, a tie down is basically giving yourself assurance that they feel confident within the process. All right, so there's no underlying uncertainty, like there's no value objection, this can't work for me. You're basically eliminating all that and instilling confidence in yourself. Okay, so they see the value, they have the confidence, now I just need to overcome the objection. So you have to ask the tie down no matter what it is they throw, right? So, do you feel 100% confident this can work for you if you do show up and put in the work? Yes, okay. What about the process specifically makes you feel confident this can actually work for you? What's like the key to the castle? I'm always curious. Oh, it's the one-on-one coaching, the training, XYZ, whatever they say. Okay, how do you feel like that would actually benefit you and getting you closer to these goals? Whatever they say. Cool. So that's basically the 2 to 3 question framework as far as like the tie down side of things. Now, once you get an objection, sometimes they give it to you, right? Before I do anything, I got to speak to my wife. Sometimes you ask for the sale and then they throw the objection. So you can basically use this framework no matter which way they throw it. But the important thing to understand, we can get into reframes, analogies, but these questions, basically everything throughout here is what I ask every single time. So once you use the reframe, you use an analogy, you already know the objection, right? If we never push past XYZ objection, fear, skepticism, whatever, and make that full-on commitment, what do you expect to ultimately ever change? Nothing, right? And if nothing changes, what would that mean for you specifically? Oh, I'd be in the same spot, working the 9 to 5, not providing for my family the way I wanted to. Okay, is that the life or position you want to continue settling for? No. So you already consequenced them. You instilled in their mind if they don't make change, nothing's going to actually propel them to get to the results they want. And then you just have to future pace them. Okay, so stepping into that version of herself, the fully confident, fully committed, what do you feel he or she does in this moment to put himself in the best position possible? Is it to, push past that skepticism, make the full-on commitment we need, or is it to allow the skepticism, that way of thinking, to actually hold us back and remain within the same position? What does that version of herself do? They do it, right? So that's the basis behind every objection, is just moving them from one side of the bridge, conquering the limiting belief, to get them to the other side as far as their goals, intention, everything they've ever wanted. So using this framework, this is the initial stage. So if they already give you an objection, you already know what it is, like before you even ask for the sale, right? So think about it. In terms of the process, do you feel 100% confident this can get you where you want to go? Perfect. You already got the tie down. Same thing with money, same thing with partner, same thing with logistics. You want to make sure you get the tie down before anything. Now, with this, think about it's a little different because it's typically a smoke screen. So in this case, you're going to, ask that's not an issue. What is it you specifically want to go over or think about just to see how I can help in any way? Money, I'll get into that here in a sec. Partner, same thing. You get the tie down. Yeah, when you do go speak to husband, wife, brother, business partner, whatever, what do you feel specifically want to go over or you'd like to see just to see how I can help in any way? So those are the initial pre-handles when they don't give you an objection. If they give you an objection, you can attack it right away because you already know what's behind that underlying mindset and limiting belief. But I wanted to touch on this because a lot of times sales reps and those within any sales industry immediately try to attack an objection when they don't know what the objection actually is. They're solving the wrong objection and limiting belief, which then leads into return you're not going to get the sale because you're not handling the correct mindset and you're not going down the right path that's actually needed to not only help that person, but shift them to the version themselves who makes the full-on commitment and actually overcomes that mindset. So probably one of the most common objections anybody will get in any sales industry is fear. That could be internal fear, that could be fear of spending money, but any sort of fears, typically the most common objection you'll actually get, but here's how we're actually going to handle it. So as I mentioned, getting the tie down, right? Making sure they feel 100% confident this can work for them. So with this, you want to isolate the objection. So in this case, finances aside, would you do it? Yes. Okay. Why would you do it though? You're still putting in the time, putting the effort, putting in the energy. Why would you actually do it? And you want them to relate back to their goals, right? Oh, it could get me to 20K a month. It could, get me out of the 9 to 5. It could provide for my family better. Okay. So then you want to go binary and use a slight reframe to shift their perspective. And this is how it's done. When I say binary as well, it's very similar. One option, one option. There's no maybe kind of think about it. It's either this person or that person. They can only say yes or no or who they want to become, right? So with this as well, like, what do you feel is ultimately more risky? Making the money we are now, 5K a month, and saying we don't have the money, right? Or actually overcoming that hurdle of not having enough money, pushing past that fear to start getting the skills we need to actually make more money, get to the 15, 20K months, and get out of the 9 to 5 as well. Like, what do you feel is more risky? So you need to use tonality there, but the whole basis behind that question is you need them to admit it's more risky as far as inaction, rather than actually taking that leap and making the commitment for themselves. So whatever it is there, you get that objection, you handle that, preface it, reframe, analogy, but then you want to obviously come from a place of understanding. Like, yeah, I mean, no matter which way you go about it, whether you think about it a day, a month, a year, it's always going to be uncomfortable investing in yourself because you're changing the way you're doing things to get the results we never had, right? But with that decision, never being comfortable, no one ever said getting to the goals of XYZ, whatever they want, those were going to be easy either, correct? No, right? And then you're going to consequence them. So if we continue to keep making the comfortable decision, never push past that fear and invest into ourselves, what do you feel is ultimately ever going to change, right? And we're exactly right up to this here. Same exact framework. I ask this for every single objection, and you're right into the consequence as well as the future base, right? Nothing's ultimately ever going to change. Okay, so if nothing changes, what would that mean for you specifically? Nothing, same spot. I'd let the last 2 years look like the next 2 years into the future. Okay, is that the position or life we want to continue settling for? No. So stepping into that version of ourselves, who's fully confident, fully committed, do you feel like he actually pushes past that fear and makes the full-on commitment to himself? Or do you feel he allows that fear to hold him back and remain within the same spot? He pushes past it. Okay, so what are you going to do, right? And another good question throughout here as well, when channeling fear, I specifically asked this, like, if you knew you wouldn't fail, would you do it right now? A lot of times, yes, because failure isn't an option, right? But you have to make the prospect understand and think of the way like the only way I fail is if I don't show up and put in the work. It's nobody's responsibility other than mine to get the results I want. So you're already isolating fear. If you knew you wouldn't fail, you would do it. So what does that version of ourselves who does everything in his power to make it work, what does he actually do, right? And then you're just going to simply ask, like, what are you going to do? Are we going to actually do it? Like, make that full-on commitment? Or are we going to allow that, fear to build up, create more anxiety, and actually hold us back from pursuing the things we want? Jumping right into uncertainty now. So this is probably the second most common objection you'll get throughout any B2C high ticket offer. Sometimes even in like B2B as well, because determining like, can this actually work for them? But a lot of times most sales reps confuse fear and uncertainty. They're handling the wrong objection at the end of the call, which loses a lot of deals. So the important thing to remember with this is fear is usually internal, like self-doubt, investing, like that initial bit of anxiety and hesitation. Uncertainty, you'll typically hear common words like, yeah, I'm not sure like this will work out the way I want it to. Or can you show me testimonials? Can I see some student wins? Can I speak with another student? So they're looking for external certainty, but in reality, that's never going to come. So you need to make sure they understand the only way they can do that is pushing past their own mindset, becoming the guarantee, and making sure they're certain in themselves. So with the uncertainty side of things, obviously get the tie down. Like make sure they're confident this can work for them, get them the results they want, like any single objection. And then you need to come from a place of understanding, right? Yeah, man, I totally understand where you're coming from. There's always a little built up of uncertainty, like as far as doing something new, doing something we've never done before. But how are we ever going to know if we never take that first step? They won't, right? It's the same thing as far as anything else. Like you can use an analogy here, like what's your favorite food? Oh, steak. How'd you know you like steak for the first time? You tried it, right? It's the same thing as far as online business. Or if somebody says, oh, I'm not sure this is the right fit. How are you going to know if something's the right fit until you actually show up and try? You won't, right? So it's physically impossible for them to say any other thing but that. And then you can just ask like, why? Like, how are you ever going to know if we never take that first step? We won't. Why? Why not though? Right? So they're instilling in their mind, like, I have to try, I have to make change for actually to see different outcomes, right? So that's the most important part. And especially when somebody uses, I'm not sure this will work out the way I wanted to. I'm not sure if I'll see the results I want. You have to instill in their mind, like, they're the guarantee, right? You can even use a gym analogy. The gym analogies work for everything. Like, if you go to the gym every single day for 12 months straight, you work out, you eat healthy, you exercise, whatever it is, it's impossible not to get more fit, right? Are you going to see results in the first 2-3 weeks? Probably not. But you know over a long enough period of time with enough consistency, it's impossible to not get more fit. So it's the same thing as far as online business. The only way you can fail is if A, you don't try, or B, you try and then ultimately quit too soon. So you want to instill that in their mind as well. So that's the most important thing for this. Now, with uncertainty, it's kind of the same framework. Go back here, you use your reframe, use your analogy. Okay, so if we never push past that uncertainty, make the full-on commitment we need, what do you expect to ultimately ever change? Nothing. Okay, if nothing changes, what would that mean for you specifically? Oh, I'd be in the same spot. I'd let the last 2 years look like the next 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months into the future, right? Is that the life or position you want to continue settling for? No. Why? Because we could, right? Oh, I need change. Okay. Then you go right into your future price. Like stepping into that version of herself, what do you feel like he does in this moment to put himself in the best position possible? Do you feel like it's allow that uncertainty to, build up, hold us back, remain within the same position? Or do you feel like he actually pushes past that uncertainty, becomes the guarantee, makes the full-on commitment to himself to get to XYZ goal? He doesn't. Okay, so what are you going to do? So it's the same exact framework as far as uncertainty. You're just labeling it a little bit different, and you're more so coming from that responsibility frame, putting that commitment onto their shoulders rather than somebody else's and looking for external certainty when that's never going to come. So that's the main difference between handling fear and uncertainty and how to actually attack both, as they are very different. And if you handle the wrong objection, you're not going to close the deal. Like if their objection's fear and you tackle uncertainty, it's not going to work. If their objection's uncertainty and you tackle fear, that's not going to work either. So you have to make sure you flip that responsibility on them, attack the right objection, and actually handle it from there, specifically with fear and uncertainty. Okay, so jumping right into commitment now, another very common objection, but it's a little bit different. It's not so much they have fear, they have doubt. It's more so them internally, like finally pulling that trigger and showing up for, the person they want to become. So a lot of times throughout this, you get like a limiting belief and mindset that you need to shift and actually change in order to get the sale. So I can even scroll up here, which I'll dive into this a little bit, but kind of everything throughout this process, like right here, you're attacking their way of thinking. So, they're putting limitations on their self as far as like why they can't get to their goals, their mindset, their limiting belief, and they're the only reason as to why they're not there yet. So you're just tackling not only commitment, but their way of thinking and their belief system. An easy way to overcome any of this is like just questioning and challenging why they think that way, and bear with me. So like what you've done, like if somebody says, I don't make decisions on the spot, like I'm not committing to anything right now. Yeah, that's not an issue. But can I share a perspective on that? Yeah, okay. So that way of thinking, the exact way we've been making decisions, where has that ultimately gotten to us? on the call, right? That's why they're on the call in the first place. So if we expect to get different results, do you feel like we're going to need to keep the same decision making process, or you feel like we need to actually take action and change the way we make decisions and behaviors? We're going to have to change them. So you just have to shift their mindset as far as like who they're trying to become, because if they keep making decisions the way they've been making decisions, they're going to be the person they've always been, which is why they're on the call, because they want change. So going back to commitment, right? The most important thing is like when somebody says, I'm not buying, expecting to buy, I didn't know I had to commit right now, you just say you don't have to do anything, right? But what's your main concern? Oh, like I've never done something like this before. It's a big commitment. So you can go down the side of as far as like when you say big commitment, what do you mean by that? Or, the reason we're on the call is because we haven't really committed anything in the last XYZ time gap. That's why we're on the call, correct? And you can say, use some personalization. Like, I completely agree, right? At the same time, like, I asked myself this question, I'll ask you as well. Like, what would you say your definition of commitment truly is? Oh, it's showing up, putting the work, utilizing XYZ resources. Yeah, it's like the gym. If you show up to the gym every single day for 12 months straight, it's impossible not to get more fit, right? It's that commitment, that discipline and consistency that yields us those results. But at the same time, going into consequence, right? If we continue to allow the lack of commitment to shape the way we make decisions and never push past that and make that full on commitment, what do you feel is ultimately ever going to change? Nothing, right? Exact same framework we're up to here. If nothing changes, what would that mean for you specifically? Oh, I'd still be in XYZ spot, okay? Is that what we ultimately want to continue settling for? No. Okay. So stepping into that version of herself, the fully confident, fully committed version who, takes action, what do you feel like that person does? Who's already at 10, 20K a month? Do you feel like they make the full on commitment and change their behaviors to get the results they've never had? Or do you feel they allow the lack of commitment, the same decision making process that's led them to where they are now, continue to hold them back? What do you feel like that version of ourselves does? They do it. Okay, so what are you going to do? So the last objection I want to cover is specifically on skepticism. Now, this is a little bit more of a difficult objection because you have to get to the root as far as like what's making them skeptical. Whether that's they've had a bad experience in the past, they've gotten scammed, they've tried something but it hasn't worked out. They saw, reviews, different things online, whether it's Reddit, whatever it is. So typically when somebody says they've been scammed before, I'll simply just ask, yeah, I completely understand. I've had my bad fair share of experiences as well, right? When you say, you're skeptical or been scammed, like, did you have a bad experience in the past? Have you just seen bad reviews, things online? Or like, how do you feel? And they're going to give you the exact answer you need as to what makes them skeptical. So you just have to rewire their brain around the skepticism and make them sure like their inaction isn't going to change and get them to the results they want, right? So you can use a simple analogy in this case, like especially if somebody's had a bad experience, you could go down if you've had a girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, husband, wife, they broke up with you, would that stop you from looking for the right one? No. Okay, why not, right? Or if somebody's, seen bad reviews online, what's your favorite fast food restaurant? Chick-fil-A. Okay, does Chick-fil-A have 100% five-star reviews? Do they have some bad ones as well? They have some bad ones as well. Does that stop you from ultimately going to Chick-fil-A? No. Why not, right? So you just have to rewire their brain, use a simple logistical analogy, and then you're going to attack the belief system again, right? Kind of right into the same framework. Once you use the analogy, the reframe, that's why we're here today, right? Because if we let one bad experience or that skeptical way of thinking and we never actually push past that and try again or, make that full-on commitment, what position is that going to leave us in? Same one, right? And if we let the last 5 years look like the next 5 into the future, where do you feel like, that's actually going to leave us or what's ultimately ever going to change? Oh, we'll still be at XYZ position. Okay. Is that what we want to continue settling for? No. Why not? Right? And then you're basically already in your why. If you're at the end of the call, okay, so who do you feel like you need to become in this moment to put ourselves in the best position possible to getting to XYZ goal? Do you feel like that version of ourselves, pushes past the skepticism, makes the commitment, becomes the guarantee? Or do you feel like they allow that one bad experience to continue shaping the way we make decisions and never try again? They try, okay, what are you going to do from there, right? The most important thing I want you to understand from this is every single objection comes back to this framework. You're asking the same objection, whatever it is, you're asking the same questions, right? It's just a different process as far as getting there because every objection is different, right? Whether they give you the objection, whether you need to dig for the objection, as well as sometimes you pre-frame like their mindset as well as way of thinking. Sometimes you just gain a little bit better understanding as far as their experience, right? So that's the most important part, whether it's fear, uncertainty, skepticism, commitment. You just need to shut the door, change that limiting belief, going back to the bridge, right? They're on one side, they're trying to get here. What's that limiting belief in the gap or the middle that you need to put an end to for them to be able to overcome their limiting belief and mindset to get them to the end? But this is kind of high level as far as like all objections. We'll continue to make more videos as far as like breaking down single objections. But as always, like, comment, subscribe. Connor_Krinos on all socials. If you have questions or anything, shoot me a message. Whether you're looking to get into high ticket sales, already in high ticket sales, some other sales industry, looking to transition for the time or financial freedom as well. More than happy to help, give you any tips, advice as far as like how I got started, my experience, as well as, have potential coaching and mentorship within the bio as well if you want to click on that. But outside of that, close some deals, make some commissions, and we will be back soon.